Welcome to Older Militarist Radio TV. We're lifelong Catholics, and what we do is all for free. And for our love of Jesus Christ, and for Holy Mother, the Church. We'll defend our Holy Mother, the Church. Today we're going to go through and debunk all the Russian propaganda that has been thrown at President Zelensky and tell you the truth about what is really going on. Here with Brother Alexis Bonello.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Ordo Militaris Radio TV. It's always a pleasure. And if anyone who is a listener of Ordo Militaris Radio TV knows anything about our work to help Ukrainian refugees, you know that we are accused of being pro-Ukrainian, though our motivation has nothing to do with politics. And I tend to be very critical with anything I see about news, because I'm well aware of there's Russian propaganda out there, though this war has made it quite clear that there's a lot more Russian propaganda on social media than any of us realize. And I have to say, looking at this list by Randy Ma, I was surprised to see I had fallen for some of these Russian talking points. So who's Randy Ma and what did he write recently?
So Randy Ma is a Republican activist, lawyer, environmental businessman, and an infantry officer, veteran.
Okay, and I'm surprised he's a Republican. Why is that surprising, AJ?
Because the Republicans are anti-Ukrainian.
For the most part, and some of them go for the most outrageous things, such that they've convinced most of the Christians in the United States to do nothing to help the Ukrainian people, even those who have nothing to do with the war or only victims, which is really cool. So let's get right into the Russia always wants to make themselves look right, and if Russia might not be a very effective fighting force, though I think all the Russophiles out there are going to start screaming at that comment, but they're very good at their propaganda, and much than people think. So we'll go to their claims one by one. The first claim is, the first claim I thought was actually true. All these stories about President Zelensky of Ukraine being a cocaine user. What's the truth behind that, AJ?
Yeah, so everything all okayed by frames here. So in recent weeks, people have been sharing at least 3 videos purporting show Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky either using cocaine or making incoherent remarks after allegedly consuming drugs. But these videos have been cut misleadingly and sometimes even digitally manipulated. These accusations against the Ukrainian president are nothing new. During Ukraine's presidential election in 2019, his opponents accused him of being addicted to cocaine. Zelensky went as far as to take a live drug test on social media. Supporters of outgoing President Petro Poroshenko, who was defeated in an election, challenged the results of Zelensky's drug test and then mocked him in a campaign clip. Claims of drug use have emerged again in relation to Zelensky, this time via misleading videos shared online with captions in French and English. Then there's another one, a video digitally manipulated to put cocaine on the president's desk. And that has been shared since April 23rd, mainly on pro-Russian groups on Telegram. Claims show a pile of white powder on Zelensky's desk while he's video chatting with Elon Musk.
Yeah, that's the one I saw, and it fooled me. This is a very good report, and this is out of France, and France tends to be pro-Russian. So, does the article go on and say more?
Yeah, some users have questioned whether the March 6 video itself edited, but 2 seconds into the video, a halo of light can be seen passing over a bank card placed on the desk. However, the bank card does not glow as it should, proving that it was added digitally. An edited video to twist his words. A second video posted on April 18th on the Invaccinable Telegram channel, well known for sharing disinformation related to COVID-19, claimed to show an interview in which Zelensky admits to being a junkie On video subtitles in French and English, we can read, at 7 a.m., I got up, took a walk with the dog, and I do snort drugs. And explained by our colleagues from AFP Fact Check, the original interview was conducted by the Ukrainian media source Ukrainskaya Pravda on January 21st, 2019. In it, Zelensky explained that he does not use drugs and talks about the benefits of sports as follows. This is the diet I follow. At 7 a.m., I get up, take my dog out, and work out. What is the point in working out? It's about pushing yourself. It gives you energy for the whole day. I recommend it to everyone, but not through intensive practice because it makes you want to sleep during the day. And this release is enough for the day, yes.
Okay, and that article is by
France 24.
Okay, and AJ will have the links on the show page to all these articles. So don't believe everything you see. When a person makes what seems to be an absolute emphatic claim and gives you a picture that's setting you up, should give you a reference source of someone who's saying the claim is true, not a picture, okay?
Yep.
So next claim is that Zelensky is a Nazi.
So this one's been going around ever since the start of the war when the Ukrainian national soccer team gave Zelensky a jersey. And someone digitally edited the back of the jersey where it has the 95 number and changed the 95 into a swastika.
Okay, and this is a part of a bigger smear campaign against the Ukrainian Azov unit who valiantly defended Mariupol.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of, yeah, go ahead.
In March 2022, as Russia continued its invasion of Ukraine, an image started circulating on social media that supposedly showed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky holding a swastika jersey. This is not a genuine photograph of Zelensky, but another piece of propaganda that tries to depict Zelensky, who is Jewish, as a Nazi in order to justify Russia's invasion of the country. A few days after Russian President Vladimir Putin launched an attack on Ukraine at the end of February 2022, he attempted to justify this action, which he dubbed a special operation, instead of an attack or an invasion, by saying that the goal of Russia's invasion was to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. A group of historians and scholars of Nazism, World War II, and genocide published a letter in Jewish journal that labeled Putin's claim that Ukraine was run by Nazis as factually wrong and morally repugnant.
And these photos that you see of the Azov unit holding Nazi flags, they're fake too, because the Azov unit isn't Nazi at all, and there's nothing Nazi about them. I know, I spoke to people from Azov, from Mariupol. So if you meet anyone who claims the contrary, ask them to go to Mariupol and find out. And if they're not willing to talk to anyone from Mariupol, then you can quote me, because I sat down at a table of three of them and asked them that question. So, and that was in Kyiv, because I actually had the courage and integrity to go to Kyiv and find out the story. So Mott says consistent stories are that he is stealing money from foreign aid. What's the truth about that?
Yeah, so let's see here. Let's see here. Stealing foreign aid.
Number 5.
Okay. Is that the one where he bought a house for his parents?
No, this is the one. This is the one right after the swastika pic. The story. Oh, he bought, about his parents bought the $1 million. Yeah.
Okay.
Real estate.
So this is from USA Today. Since Russia invaded Ukraine in February, social media has been flooded with false and misleading information about the conflict. One popular topic is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's property assets. An October 5th Instagram post claims that Zelensky recently bought his parents an $8 million villa. The post included an image of a lavish estate. And the quote is, I see that Zelensky just bought his parents an $8 million villa, complete with a saltwater pool and 3 brand new vehicles. Reads the text included in the post. But let's keep just on sending billions of our tax dollars for foreign aid to Ukraine. On October 16th, another Instagram post features the same text but attributes the origin of the claim to singer songwriter Kid Rock. But the posts are false. There's no evidence that Zelensky made such purchase for his parents. The property pictured in the post is still listed for sale on the Sotheby International website.
Yeah, so these are this is the kind of outrageous thing you normally see. And just as a side comment is the argument that the United States is sending tons of money to Ukraine and therefore it's a waste, should be measured by the fact that Donald Trump put the government in debt 100 times as much, and he didn't send money to anyone. So he never built the wall too, which he could have built for a lot less than the money he wasted.
Yeah.
So if you're really interested in government spending, look at the whole picture, and you'll see that the actual foreign aid the United States has sent to the Ukraine is a very, very small part of national spending. Okay, so the next one is that Zelensky is a billionaire because he's just ripped off everyone so much, and that's where he's sending most of this aid is to his private pocket.
Yeah. And he's not a billionaire. He's only worth $25 million.
Okay, and what's the source that debunks this Russian propaganda?
Forbes.
Okay. What do they tell us about his personal wealth?
A popular internet meme currently making the rounds claims without evidence that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is worth $1.4 billion, more than Will Smith, Chris Rock, and Dave Chappelle combined. The intuition is clear. For Zelensky, a former comedian, to have accumulated a fortune of this size, there must be corruption involved. And while this claim has been parroted by its fair share of anonymous Twitter eggs, a number of blue checks have gotten in on the action. Lee Stranahan, an American host on Kremlin-owned and controlled Radio Sputnik, featured an Oliver Stone documentary revealing Ukraine, tweeted to his nearly 100,000 followers, "Why is Zelensky a billionaire?" Forbes' answer, he's not. The Russian invasion has hit Ukraine's billionaires hard. According to Forbes' 36th annual World Billionaires list, there's only 7 left in the country, and Zelensky is not one of them, nor is former president and chocolate magnate Petro Poroshenko, who dropped from the rankings this year. But unlike his predecessor, Zelensky never was a billionaire. He's currently worth roughly $20 million based on reporting by Forbes Ukraine. Additional reporting by Forbes US put that number at least 30 million. The main asset, an estimated 25% stake in Carvatal 95, a group of companies that produce humorous shows which he transferred to his partners after being elected president. Though he'll likely regain his shares after leaving office, Carvatal 95 produced and owns the Servant of the People series, a popular political comedy showing Zelensky as a Ukrainian high school teacher who was elected president. Netflix, which previously streamed the show between 2017 and 2021, snapped up the rights again in March, with an estimated revenue of $30 million annually. Forbes Ukraine values Zelensky's stake at $11 million.
Okay, so he's just a TV thing. And this is another one of the Russian talking points that I just uncritically accepted myself. So one of the other targets of Russian propaganda is Zelensky's wife. And one of the claims made is that his wife went on a big shopping spree in Paris before his trip to DC. It seems a minor thing, but these are the kind of stories that Wise will pick up and spread around. Now, is this true at all?
Let's see, this is from Newsweek. And Ukraine's First Lady Olena Zelenska visited Paris earlier this month in a trip that was widely heralded by the French media. She was accompanied on the trip to French capital with Ukrainian officials, including her country's Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal, in a visit that was aimed at showing the strength of ties between Ukraine and France. However, shortly after the trip, claims began to emerge on social media, speculating that Zelensky had taken an expensive shopping trip while in the French capital. Let's see there.
The AAP out of Australia also covered the story.
Yeah. In the days following Zelensky's visit to Paris, several Twitter accounts posted about her supposed shopping trip, often juxtaposing the amount she purportedly spent against the U.S. aid transferred to Ukraine over the past year. I'm glad that we are sending billions of our tax money to Zelensky's wife and go on a $42,500 shopping spree in Paris, one user wrote on December 15th. Philippe Zelensky and his corrupt regime, everyone who supports them. This war is so bad in Ukraine that Zelensky's wife flew to Paris. Go shopping. It's just another scam, wrote another user. Some posts, such as by account Clown World, simply shared screenshots of news articles repeating the claim. And journalist Max Bugenthal tweeted on December 21st that French social media had been buzzing about the $40,000 Paris shopping spree by Alina Zelensky. And variations of the claims are shared across a number of languages, including Russian, Spanish, Polish, and Portuguese, with most using the same, almost identical phrasing and using a translating service into the respective languages. And while the claim about Zelensky was picked up by other social media users, including considered voices such as the Gateway Pundit and hoax news sites, its provenance appears to be extremely murky and lacking in credibility. Newsweek Fact Check found several of the tweets, including those in English and Russian, appear to feature an image of a new article detailing the story of the $40,000 spin. While the source is not cited in those tweets, Newsweek found that the screenshotted article titled Zelensky wife spent $4,000 shopping in Paris, blah blah blah, appeared on a known hoax news site as News Punch, widely reported to have disseminated misinformation online.
Mm-hmm. I'll point out that the Clown World social media site is often pushing propaganda.
Yeah, so it
So
is
this is
also false.
Yeah, you can see from what you just read that the Russian propaganda machine works the same mem. They must test it out in small groups and see how effective it is, and they launch it in multiple languages. And this one was very effective since the women picked up on it and spread it.
Yeah.
Considering that some famous American politicians or actresses or musicians actually have stolen more goods than that on a shopping spree, and I mean stolen meaning they're kleptos. It's amazing this story would even travel, but evidently it's the envy factor because the women want to go shopping, so they,
Yeah.
Another common Russian propaganda point is that Zelensky's not even in Ukraine. He's faking it all with photos, and that he has a big press corps around him with artists and stuff. And he's not even there in the war zone. It's just totally being made up. This is part of the bigger propaganda that there's actually no war in the Ukraine, and that Russia is following all the laws, and everything is propaganda, what you're hearing in the West. So what's the story behind this one?
This comes from stopfake.org, which is for stopping fake news. The narrative recycles old footage of the Ukrainian president recording a hologram to allege he fled the country. Pro-Kremlin actors are recircling the false narrative that claims Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky fled Ukraine at the beginning of the war last February. This narrative has been repeatedly debunked by fact-checking organizations. In addition, Zelensky has met with several foreign officials in Kyiv since the war began. However, these facts have not stopped the conspiracy from spreading to YouTube and flowing across the fringes of the internet. The latest iteration of the theory claims Ukraine employed a green screen in recent videos posted by Zelensky to create the impression he's still in the country. The footage used to prove this narrative, however, came from the production shoot earlier this year, in which Zelensky was filmed using hologram technology for a series of speaking engagements. The latest iteration of the conspiracy emerged amid the massive shelling of Ukrainian cities and civilian infrastructures on October 10th. Pro-Kremlin assets promoted a story that claimed Zelensky was not in Ukraine and was using a green screen to post videos from Kyiv. In one example, a user asked whether the green screen survived after the false reports claimed the president's office had been destroyed. Pro-Kremlin accounts and at least one RT employee amplified the claim, stressing that because the skies are not filled with smoke, Zelensky cannot be in Kyiv. Despite extensive strikes on Kyiv, the camera could easily have been turned in a direction with no smoke, as the strikes occurred in different parts of the downtown region.
Yeah, I mean, the Russian missile attacks on Kyiv are frequent, but the charges, the warheads on these missiles are so small that you almost never see smoke. It was a missile that hit in the same quarter town I was living. I heard it explode because my window was open. It was like 6:30 in the morning. You couldn't see any smoke. It took me a couple hours to find out where it is. And that's for Zelensky being in Kyiv. He's walked right down the street in front of the apartment I had there. You know, it's just one of these fakes. The truth is, what world leader is usually on a green screen and the people in front of him aren't even there?
Yeah, that'd be Joe Biden.
Joe Biden, also Vladimir Putin.
Mhm.
Almost all the video shot of Vladimir Putin, the person in front of him or the people at the table aren't there at all. So, the biggest fake news, however, is the money laundering claims. According to Mott, these have been adopted by many Americans because they fit into the narrative about Hunter Biden, and they want them to be true. So,
Yeah.
what's this about money laundering?
Yeah.
Number 12.
Got it.
Number 10, actually.
Yep. Yep. This is from the Hudson.org Foreign Policy. Ukraine is in a national struggle that will determine its geopolitical future. The country will either be a firm member of the Euro-Atlantic community or become a Russian colony. The outcome of the struggle will have long-term implications for America's global interests. The future of the transatlantic community, the notion of national sovereignty in the 21st century. So here's the first myth. There's not enough oversight of U.S. aid to Ukraine. Reality, there has likely never been more accountability or transparency measures in place for U.S. foreign assistance than what is available for Ukraine aid. Take the biggest and most controversial supplemental from last May, which allocated $40.1 billion. This bill was 699 lines long. Of these, 110 lines dealt with accountability, transparency, and reporting requirements. Therefore, 16% of the bill text was dedicated to oversight. May's bill also included 16 separate reporting requirements to U.S. Congress for the Department of Defense, Department of State, U.S. Agency for International Development, and Department of the Treasury. To date, 3 Ukraine supplementals have allocated additional 14 million for the Inspector General of the Department of Defense, Department of State, USAID, to increase oversight. There is plenty of accountability and oversight. Those who argue that there's not enough have failed to outline in detail what additional oversight is needed.
So that's an easy claim to make. What are the other myths about U.S. aid to Ukraine?
Yeah, myth 2. We have written more than 66 billion worth of blank checks for Ukraine. Reality, this claim is misleading. The sum of 3 Ukraine supplemental totals $66.1 billion, But not all this money goes to Ukraine. Billions of dollars have gone toward other items like replenishing U.S. military stocks, deterrence measures in Eastern Europe outside Ukraine, and energy-related issues. For example, so far, 14 billion has gone to replenish U.S. stocks of equipment, 9.7 billion to U.S. European Command to increase the military presence in Eastern Europe, and 2 billion to address the increase of energy costs related to this war in Ukraine. The billions of dollars allocated for military assistance to Ukraine never leave the United States, despite the perception that opponents of American aid to Ukraine create. Funds for military support are not wired to Ukrainian government bank accounts. Instead, the U.S. president uses the appropriated funds for a drawdown of military equipment to be sent to Ukraine for the U.S. to give funds to the Ukrainian government, like the 13.2 billion for economic support fund. The Secretary of State and Minister of the USAID have jointly submit a report to the relevant congressional committees on the proposed uses of these funds. There are no blank checks.
That's very detailed report, and I'm glad, because most people don't know even how the government spends money, and it's easy to see a claim on social media, and it's just not true. So now, what's the third myth about U.S. aid to Ukraine?
There's not enough time to read the bill. They keep saying this over and over again.
And the bill only has 669 lines. Well, you should be able to read that in, about less than an hour.
Yeah, it's 29 pages long, folks.
That's pretty short bill.
In 2022, Ukraine has been the single most discussed, reported, debated foreign policy issue in the United States. Lawmakers, policymakers, commentators routinely discuss the war in Ukraine and the U.S. role in supporting Kyiv. Far from there not being enough time to debate Ukraine, the war is continually debated throughout the public square and the halls of Congress. Also, lawmakers have had plenty of time to read the supplementals, which have been relatively short in length before each vote. Ukraine's supplemental from May has been the longest one in length to date. It received the most criticism on the grounds that there was not enough time to consider it. The text of this bill was 29 pages long and approximately 4,900 words in length. The average adult can reportedly read around 250 words per minute, meaning someone would need approximately 20 minutes to read the text of May's bill.
Yeah, compared to some other Democratic bills that have gone through, there've been thousands of pages and you weren't allowed to read them. So, but the other interesting thing in this that I would point out is for people who aren't in favor of defending any foreign country that's Christian, because the Republican Party has thrown money at defending Jewish countries, Arabic countries, Turkish countries, any kind of non-Christian country. The Republican Party pretty much throws money at, except doesn't throw money to help countries in Latin America or black people in Africa. But if it has to do with defending the Japanese or Israel or Saudi Arabia, they're right up front. But ask yourself, why is there all this talk against Ukraine? What else is going on in the United States? Since the spending on Ukraine is not even 1% of the national budget, why aren't you looking into how the 99% of the national budget is being spent? Because a common tactic is discuss one thing on which you will never find a problem, because they don't want you to discuss the things where you would obviously find them. On top of the fact that, if the election was stolen, why aren't you doing anything about it? So only complaining about Ukraine. But let's go to the fourth myth about U.S. aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, so money to Ukraine would be better spent on the wall or baby formula. This is like saying that a man must choose between being a committed husband, a loving dad, or a hard worker. Sometimes in life, one must do more than one important task at a time. The same applies to when governing a superpower. Furthermore, the issues of U.S. support to Ukraine, the horrific and chaotic situation at the southern border, and the shortage of baby formula are not connected issues. When lawmakers voted on the supplemental in May, they did not have to choose between either alleviating the baby formula shortage or supporting Ukraine.
If any Republican out there is complaining about the wall not being built on the southern border because of funding to Ukraine, they are totally disconnected from reality, because Donald Trump had complete control of both houses of Congress in his first 2 years of office, and he never did a blessed thing. It was only once he lost the House that he ran the bill in the second half of his presidency when he couldn't possibly win. So whose fault is that? Is that Zelensky's? Is that Ukraine? Is that the 40 million Christians are being genocided in the Ukraine? No. So, be a little honest. Don't blame the Ukrainians or the people supporting them in their defense against this murderous war from Russia. Blame your own party, because it's your own party who's failed you. So stop transferring the guilt to someone else. That's neither charitable or good psychology.
Oh.
So let's go to the next myth about U.S. aid to Ukraine.
Europe needs to spend more before America does. Reality? Yeah. Europe needs to spend more, but it's misleading to suggest that it's not doing much. The U.S. leads in total financial commitment to Ukraine. However, according to the respective Kiel Institute for the World Economy Ukraine aid tracker, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, Lithuania, Norway, Slovakia, and Czechia have given more to Ukraine than the U.S. as a percentage of the GDP. The United States and the United Kingdom are tied for eighth place. Also, because a lot of aid is unannounced, it is impossible to know how much European countries have given to Ukraine. Of course, Europe can do more, but complaining that it is not spending enough is no excuse for the U.S. to stop supporting Ukraine.
Yeah. So some countries have been absolutely amazing. I think they've given, like, what was it? Latvia has given half of their military budget to the Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
When at any moment they could be rolled over by Russia, because they border Russia with the Russian Federation. So that's not only generous, that's outrageously heroic. So we're up to the sixth myth about U.S. aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, U.S. should only give military aid. Some propose this argument to find middle ground or compromise with those who do not want to provide any aid to Ukraine. However, this proposal is half-measured that would only get partial results. The Ukrainian military is not only an actor at war with Russia, as shown by Russia's indiscriminate use of Iranian drones to target civilians. The whole of Ukrainian society is at war. The war has eliminated an estimated 45% of Ukraine's GDP. Even so, the Ukrainian government and essential public services need to function properly for the nation to remain on the total war footing. For years, critics of America's approach to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan complained that Washington focused too much on war fighting and not enough on non-military aspects of the conflicts. Now that the U.S. is doing the opposite in Ukraine, many of the same people now criticize this comprehensive approach to U.S. aid. This support needs to be broad in scope. Those who call for U.S. to give only military support fail to see the bigger picture in Ukraine.
Yeah, anyone who would only want to give military support, not humanitarian support, is just simply cruel. But some people are so taken by hate that they don't even think like Christians anymore. It's really shameful. So now the seventh myth about U.S. aid to Ukraine.
U.S. weapons are ending up on black markets or not getting to the front lines. Reality, there is no evidence that weapons are going missing. A CBS report from August, which opponents to U.S. aid for Ukraine often use to make their case, suggesting that a significant percentage of weapons never make it to the front lines, was immediately debunked and then retracted. On the contrary, the recent progress Ukraine has made in the counterattacks near Kharkiv and Kherson proves that U.S. weapons are reaching their intended destinations and proves that U.S. aid is effective. There is no evidence that weapons recently supplied to Ukraine have ended up on the black market. For that matter, there is no evidence that weapons provided to Ukraine since 2014 have appeared on the black market in any meaningful sense.
Yeah, okay. So, you're always going to find one thing here or there that might be awry, but that doesn't mean, and it's even 1% of what's going on. And I can tell you from having lived in Ukraine 3 months, everyone in Ukraine, even the criminals, want Ukraine to win this war. The last thing they do would be to sell weapons to someone else. What is the 8th myth about U.S. aid to Ukraine?
Ukraine is too corrupt to receive aid responsibility. Reality, to date, there has been no high-profile cases of corruption involving donated military equipment, budget funding, or humanitarian aid. It is no secret that corruption is a problem in Ukraine. This is the case with the most states that gained independence after the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. Since 2014, Ukraine has taken positive steps at fighting corruption. However, U.S. policymakers and commentators need to be realistic about how much and how quickly Ukraine can reform during a war of national survival. In the meantime, the U.S. should continue with the comprehensive and strict oversight measures in place for U.S. aid and, when possible, continuing to help Ukraine with its anti-corruption reforms.
Okay, and what's now the 9th myth about U.S. aid?
Russia is a distraction. U.S. focus must be on China. Reality, Russia is China's junior partner. A weakened or defeated Russia means a weaker China. Beijing is also watching how Western powers support Ukraine. So a strong and victorious Ukraine makes Taiwan stronger too. Some have suggested that U.S. should sacrifice its security interests in Ukraine to focus on the threat from China. Many of Russia's and China's strategic goals in Europe overlap. Both want a weakened and divided Europe that both can exploit. Both want to eclipse the U.S. partnership with Europe so that the free world is divided and more vulnerable. Russia shifted many of its forces involved in the invasion of Ukraine from its eastern military district so the number of troops near Russia's border with China is at historically unprecedented low level. This point demonstrated how much Russia trusts China. The choice between security in Europe or security in the Indo-Pacific is a false economy. In terms of U.S. national interests, these two regions are intimately linked.
Yeah, that's probably one of the weakest. And what is now the 10th myth about
Aid to
U.S. aid?
Ukraine puts America last. Reality, America's foreign policy challenges are too complex to boil down to bumper sticker slogans like America First or America Last. Anyone who uses these terms to describe the U.S. role in the world knows little about foreign affairs and is best ignored.
Okay, so that one, I will be slightly in dissent of that. I think America First does have a valid meaning, but that's the Hudson Institute. So that's important that we went through all the points just to get a more broad and in-depth view of U.S. aid to Ukraine. So when you hear a mem claiming something, you at least now know to look where to look or questions to ask to see if the claim is being made. Now, the general problem with all this propaganda is people let themselves be convinced by a mem and don't even read an article. Now, if that's the way you're going to make decisions in life, you are already a robot. You're already letting people think for you and press your buttons. And if you live like that, you're going to end up in a terrible end. So don't let anyone do that to you. And that's why platforms like Twitter, which have become just overflowed with meaningless memes ever since Elon Musk took over, it's really a waste of time to be on them most of the day. They're not like they used to be, where people would share articles, news articles. So I'm not saying all news articles are necessarily worth reading or factually based, but there's someone's put his name in that article and has risked his reputation of what's been said. That's a lot more reliable than some anonymous Twitter account sharing a meme that has no information in it and a doctored photo. Okay, so we'll get back to Mott's article now, and where he writes, Biden's bagman was Poroshenko. The President Zelensky beat Poroshenko with a 73% of the vote. Zelensky has probably provided half the information in the FBI file on Biden since Poroshenko and deals were investigating the Ukraine. Trump gave military aid to Zelensky even in 2019. What's this whole story about? Because they're always bringing this up that Biden's family is involved with corruption in the Ukraine, and they always turning that on Zelensky, and they don't get the right government, do they?
No. So let's go to the Kyiv Post. Hopefully we can, there we go. The Prosecutor General's office launched a criminal investigation against Petro Poroshenko, the former president of Ukraine. Poroshenko lawyer Igor Golovin said in a statement. Golovin claimed that at the same time, twin case was open that involves U.S. President Joe Biden. The Kyiv Post wasn't able to verify the claim. Prosecutor General's office didn't respond to requests for a comment. Both investigations were allegedly launched based on the complaint by Andriy Derich, a pro-Russian lawmaker whom the U.S. government has identified as a Russian agent. According to Golovin's January 26 announcements on Poroshenko-owned Channel 5 TV network, both Poroshenko and Biden face charges for suspected meddling in the money laundering investigation of Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company that employed Biden's son Hunter Biden. According to Poroshenko's lawyer, the new cases concern the alleged interference of Poroshenko and Biden into the activities of the former prosecutor general Viktor Shokin. Based on Golovin's description, the case appears to fall in the lines of a long-running yet debunked conspiracy theory about then Vice President Biden allegedly demanding that Shokin was fired because of the investigation of the company that employed his son. The theory has been pursued by President Trump and his followers. According to Golovin, if found guilty, Poroshenko is facing a fine, a year community service, or 3 months in detention.
Yeah, so this is a strange one. So Trump knows that even if this claim is true, it has to do with the previous government, not Zelensky. So why are Republicans using this story against supporting the Zelensky government? It's totally dishonest. Okay, that's like accusing Trump for something that Biden did. Okay, well, that's just not honest. Okay, so have some basic honesty and don't fall for things like that. You're going to look stupid. So now we'll get to Tucker Carlson, who's a rather does a lot of good commentary. He's Anglican. A lot of people thought he was Catholic. We did a show on Tucker. He claimed that Zelensky is a dictator. So what's this claim? A lot of people have heard this one since they think everything Tucker Carlson says is true.
So, okay. Tucker tries to portray Zelensky as a dictator because he banned some political parties. This is inaccurate on its face because those actions had to be reviewed by other government branches. The ban was on suppressing parties that were fronts for Russian. 2 small parties got it reversed in court, claiming that it was only in their past the majority party was a Putin front. And Tucker claims Zelensky was banning churches, more than a bit misleading, since the only church he banned was the Russian Orthodox Church that is headed by an ex-KGB guy and worked closely with Putin. The Russian church has an entire element that works with the Russian army to promote the Kremlin agenda. Local priests in Ukraine work with the FSB in support of the Russian invasion. And he's shown the papers and the identification cards that were taken from the Holy Trinity Monastery that you visited.
Oh yes, they're in the Kyiv Peshcher Lavra. So I want to clarify this: there are 2 Ukrainian Orthodox churches. One is under the Patriarch of Greece, and one is under the Patriarch of Moscow. And the one under Moscow has many clergy that collaborated with Russian intelligence, and it actually want Ukraine conquered by Russia. Is it a crime in any sense for the Ukrainian government to take action against those people? Certainly not. And you can't claim someone's a dictator for suppressing parties that support the opposition. Do you know the United States outlawed the Nazi Party in the United States during the Second World War and outlawed the Communist Party during the Cold War? Are you going to say that the United States is a dictatorship? That's just ridiculous. But there's something about Tucker Carlson that everyone needs to know, AJ. What does Russia think of Tucker Carlson?
They love him, they support him, they promote him via actual messages from the Kremlin to the intelligence agency.
Yeah, actually tell their news agencies to feature Tucker. So Tucker has some deep connection with Russia, and no one's found out what it is yet. But don't be surprised he has investments in Russia. So so Mott finishes his expose saying Zelensky is a popular wartime leader fighting Russian invaders. We know he is much in the limelight, especially in the Ukraine. There are many obvious fake stories, and none of the people who know and rely on him have lost any faith in him. So maybe you should not jump to conclusions over a single tweet. And I think that's an excellent response. And this is a very fact-filled report that Mott gave us, and that's why we featured here, because it's been nearly a year now. At the 22nd of this month will be 1 year anniversary for the start of this war. And people have to start acting like Christians and adults in the discussion of this war and look at facts. If Christianity distinguishes itself from all other religions, we start with facts before we draw conclusions, and we use logic when we develop our reasons. And if you fall for propaganda, the whole foundation of your Christian response is going to be destroyed, because you're not getting facts, you're getting falsehoods involved in your whole system of thought. So thank you, AJ, for having me on this program about the Russian propaganda against Zelensky. I think it's going to be very informative to help those in the audience who want to know the truth have a more balanced view of what's going on.
Yep. This is Order Militaris Radio TV signing off. Day is full.
Day is full.